Hi, this is Dr. Morecook at HCC, and in this particular educational video about developmental psychology, we're going to be taking a look at attachment. And by the way, heads up here, while it looks like this video is a bit longer than some of the others in this particular course, it's because I've learned how to incorporate some short training videos from other sites within this particular video. So that's why this one is a little bit longer. So today's topic is attachment, and heads up here, when psychologists are working in a research situation, this is essentially a synonym for another more ordinary word, love. Taking a look at the definition then, we see that attachment is defined as a strong emotional connection, such as the bond between a child and caregiver. But in daily life, we know that such as suggests that there are other attachments that form as well. Dogs form attachments for their owners, and owners form attachments for their dogs, and animals form attachments amongst each other. So what's the cause of attachment, for example, between mother and child? The first person who had something to say about this was Sigmund Freud, the first psychoanalyst. In writing a long time ago, he had a common sense explanation, namely that, of course, mothers and sometimes fathers feed their children, and that the infant, out of gratitude, then forms an attachment because the parent is feeding them. Now, it's an interesting thing about common sense is that most people will adhere to it, but that which is common sense is not necessarily true. For example, until 150 years ago, it was common sense that women weren't bright enough to go to college, which was why it wasn't until about the year 1840 that any college in America admitted women. But frankly, in that case, that which was commonly believed turned out to be completely and utterly incorrect. Women make excellent college students, and in fact, they're making better grades, and more women are going to college at this point in history than men are. Well, back to attachment though. So Sigmund Freud had his explanation for attachment, and it was consistent with common sense. About 50 years later, along came a psychologist by the name of Harry Harlow, and he suggested that attachment took place because of something which he called contact comfort. Contact comfort is that good feeling that kiddo gets when mom and or dad or other good person holds them close and treats them nicely. Now, as an adult, you may not think about that too much, but, well, think about when you go on a date. If you're with someone who's really nice, do you like holding hands with them at the movies? Do you like cuddling up with them and feeling safe? That's contact comfort. And if you do feel safe, and this sense of safety exists for a long time, well then, love may develop. So we have two competing theories then as to what the cause of attachment is. And, well, now, let's take a look at the research. Let's hear from Harry Harlow.
Let me show you a monkey raised on a nursing wire mother. Now here are 106's two mothers. As you can see, it was weaned on a wire mother. Here's baby 106. Watch.
He's going to the wire mother.
He's got to eat to live.
Oh, he's going back.
He's back on the cloth mother, and he'll stay on the cloth mother. Actually, this baby spends from 17 to 18 hours a day on the cloth mother and less than 1 hour a day on the wire mother. We had predicted that the variable of contact comfort would be a variable of measurable importance, but we were unprepared to find that it completely overwhelmed and overshadowed all other variables, including those of nursing.
Frankly, Doctor, if it comes to a choice between wire and cloth, it's reasonable to expect that any child will go to the cloth. It's a matter of creature comfort, like a baby with its blanket. But is this really love?
Well, what do you mean by saying that a baby loves its mother? Certainly one thing we mean is that it gets a great feeling of security in the presence of the mother. Now, Mr. Collingwood, wouldn't you say that if you frightened a baby, that it went running to its mother, was comforted, and then all the fear disappeared and was replaced by a complete sense of security, that that baby loved its mother?
So stop and think now for a moment about what you just saw. Did the little critter prefer the mother that provided food but no contact comfort because it was made of wire? Or did it prefer and perhaps became more attached to the soft, cuddly mom that provided more food? And you can see which side of the argument now where most psychologists believe that attachment takes place. Now we want to take a look at a number of the signs of attachment, the things that you observe that suggest or argue that attachment is present. One of those signs is stranger anxiety. If you have a small child or brother or sister who's small and a grandmother comes to visit the baby's never seen before, do they hold on to grandma or do they push away? Pushing away is a sign of attachment.
Hey, hi. Where are you going?
Another sign of attachment is separation anxiety. If you have a child or if you have seen this happen before, you know what I'm talking about. Parents get ready to go out, to go to the movies, and their youngster, who's perhaps 14 months old, sees them going out the front door to the movies. They're going to spend the evening with their grandmother or a babysitter. What does the baby do? Scream bloody murder. It's separation anxiety. They don't like seeing them go away. Now watch what happens when dad leaves the room and the baby in the company of a stranger. The psychologist who's most famous for doing research on attachment is a lady by the name of Mary Ainsworth, and her technique for studying attachment she called the strange situation. It involved placing the child in a room that they were not familiar with, along with their principal caregiver, usually the mom, maybe the dad, and then a series of unusual things take place, such as parent gets up and leaves the room, leaving the kiddo with a stranger. Parent returns. And on the basis of making these observations, she came up with 3 signs in this particular case of attachment. Let's take a look at them. The first one, does the child explore the room in the presence of the caregiver, using the caregiver as a safe base to return to if she or he gets a little too anxious? Second, does the kiddo get upset when the parent leaves the room? And third, as it turns out, the most important sign, or the strongest sign of attachment, is what Ainsworth called the reunion. Does the kiddo get up and greet the parent warmly when they come back? perhaps celebrating, or if they were distressed, at least their distress going away. So let's watch this little video now and keep your eyes open to see if you can spot these things taking place.
But can the essential elements of home life be translated into a standard laboratory setting for controlled scientific study? After conducting extensive observations of parents and children at home, a student of Bowlby's, Mary Ainsworth, devised such a procedure called the strange situation, which places the child under some stress. It has become the most widely used, standardized way to assess the quality of a child's attachment to their caregiver. Here the researchers are recording how 14-month-old Lisa responds in this attractive but unfamiliar setting. How will she react to a stranger? What will happen when her mother leaves the room? And when she returns? It's Lisa's behavior when her mother returns, what psychologists call the reunion, that they are particularly interested in.
Most importantly is to look for the type of balance that a child strikes between an attachment need and, on the other hand, to explore the play material.
Once Lisa has settled down to play, a stranger enters the room and sits in the chair reading a magazine.
Lisa, where's the bow? Where's the bow?
After a couple of minutes, the stranger attempts to interact with Lisa. Soon after, Lisbeth gets a cue to leave the room. The stranger tries to comfort Lisa, but in vain. Lisbeth comes back into the room and the camera records how Lisa reacts. Now the first part of the procedure is over, and Lisbeth settles Lisa down again. The stranger leaves them alone together. And soon after, Lisbeth goes too. Lisa is on her own. Her distress is plain to see. Once again, the efforts of the stranger to console Lisa are to no avail. But Lisbeth manages to calm her almost at once, and shortly afterwards the observation ends. Lisa showed outward signs of what's called secure attachment.
Yes, Lisa showed signs of secure attachment, and this is what we hope will form between parent and child. But not every child is securely attached to their parent. Remember, there is such a thing as child neglect, child abuse, those sorts of things, and these things can interfere with attachment. And in fact, about 45% of the time, which is a lot of the time, secure attachment does not form. If you take a look at your screen now, mentions there are the three forms of insecure attachment. Avoidant attachment. This is a situation where after the parent leaves the room and then returns, the kiddo doesn't greet them. Like what? You were gone? Did I notice? This doesn't suggest a great deal of warmth or closeness between the two. Or second one, ambivalent attachment. Ambivalent's a fancy word that means having mixed feelings. So they're glad to see the parent, but mad that they went away, with the attitude of how could you leave me? And perhaps they go up and greet the parent and give him a hug, but at the same time they're hitting them. Or a third situation, one called a disorganized attachment. In this case, basically the kids fall apart because they could not handle the stress of being detached from their parent are separated from their parent for even a bit of time. You're also going to want to go into your textbook and read about these forms of insecure attachment as well. There's some additional description there. But you may remember that when we started this video, our definition said that attachment is a warm emotional bond between parent and child, or such as between parent and child. But attachment can form between human beings and animals, or vice versa. And adults become attached to each other as well. By the way, think about separation anxiety. If you're in love with someone, do you get distressed when they go away? That's separation anxiety. Do you celebrate when they come back? That's the reunion. And what if you were in a relationship with someone and there was no sense of distress when they left, or there was no sense of celebration when they came back? Would you wonder about how attached these two people were? I would. These are signs not just between parent and child, but within the animal kingdom. In just a moment, I'm going to show you a short video. There's an interesting story behind this video. Two young men adopted a lion when he was a child, a cub, took him home and raised him until he was an adult, and then they took him to Africa and let him go. A year later, they decided to go and find their friend, Christian the lion, and they did. After a year's separation, it was going to be interesting to see what the lion's reaction was. Would there be a reunion? Keep your eyes open and see for yourself whether there was one or not.
While Ace and John stayed on the rocks below, George went up the hillside in the direction he felt the lions might be. 5,000 miles is a long way to see a friend who perhaps could have forgotten. New friends were with him as he plodded forward, showing no recognition. Christian hesitated. A once familiar face. Then friendship was infectious. Introduction was unnecessary.
I think we both saw that there was an incredible reunion there. Incidentally, about 20 years later, they went and looked up their friend Christian the lion again, and he once again came up and greeted them warmly, and they had a pleasant day together. If you're interested in that story, you can go to YouTube and use their search engine. There's an hour-long special somewhere on YouTube that deals with it. In this video, we've taken a look at the various signs of attachment and what it is that brings about attachment. Now, one last question for you. Attachment means about the same thing as what? And for those of you who love marches, today's video began with the famous Russian march Farewell of the Slavic Woman, played by the U.S. Marine Band. If you'd like to hear the whole march, stand by.